You just had a data breach at your agency, is that correct?
We have an insider threat that transferred on an unauthorized basis some emails to their personal email account.
And you were in charge when this happened?
Of course, yes.
Okay. The bank, you would require the bank to ask that customer first about the customer's race, is that right?
So just to be clear, the proposal you reference, that has been changed since and has now into the final. The congressional requirement, and we are under a court order, requires race.
Don't filibuster me, Mr.
No, it does require race.
Just answer my questions, okay? Why do you want to know what her sexual preference is? What business is that of yours?
We sought to implement what the congressional requirements are. What business is that of yours? What a small businesswoman does in her bedroom. Again, who appointed you Pope?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Liberty Watchtower, where truth takes center stage. Here, we keep you informed, engaged, and thinking critically in a world that often demands it. If you're new to the channel, like this video, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to never miss a dose of real, unfiltered truth. Now, let's dive in. The CFPB was created after the 2008 financial crisis to serve as a watchdog over banks, lenders, and financial institutions. Its job is to ensure that consumers, especially those vulnerable to abuse, have someone on their side when navigating complex financial products like mortgages, credit cards, and small business loans. But today, that watchdog is under scrutiny. The CFPB is currently at the center of two deeply troubling issues. First, a serious internal data breach involving the personal information of over 256,000 consumers. Second, a controversial rule requires collecting sensitive demographic data from small business owners seeking loans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chopra, for being here. You just had a data breach at your agency, is that correct?
We have an insider threat that transferred on an unauthorized basis some emails to their personal email account.
And you were in charge when this happened?
Of course, yes.
Okay. And this wasn't an attack from outside your agency. It came from inside of your agency. Is that correct?
That's right. Our systems were not penetrated. It was not a hack in that way, but we had an employee who worked for us who sent those emails. The data for 256,000 consumers was breached. Is that correct? Yeah, we looked through the emails. But is my number correct? I believe that's right. Yes, but it was not their. It was not any social security number, birth dates, any of that. It was their data, though, right? It was the institution's data, but it had their name, so that's important, and it's a huge problem. Yeah, it is. You didn't tell the customers that this happened to, the consumers, for 2 months. Is that correct? Well, we did not have the contact information for them, so we had to work with institutions to figure out who to contact, and we wanted to work in partnership. But you didn't tell them for 2 months? Well, is that correct? We started the notifications, I believe, last month, but again, we did not know the contact information for them. All we had was certain data elements, and we followed the cybersecurity OMB guidance to make sure that you can understand, can you not, why consumers might be a little concerned about you having their information. Is that correct? Oh, of course. The issue of protecting personal data. Let me ask you about Section 1071, your rule on small business data collection. Under your proposed rule, when a bank loans money to a small businesswoman or a small businessman, the bank, you would require the bank to ask that customer first about
the customer's race. Is that right?
So just to be clear, the proposal you reference, that has been changed since and has now into the final. The congressional requirement, and we are under a court order, requires race.
Don't filibuster me, Mr.
No, it does
Chopra.
require
Just
race.
answer my questions, okay? Is your rule going to require banks to ask the customer about their race?
So that is
Yes
in
or
this
no?
that is in the statute, and
About their race, or is your rule going to require the bank to ask the customer about their ethnicity?
so just to be clear, in the sample form, it allows the borrower to self-identify or refuse.
Just answer my question.
No, I'm trying to be clear.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Your rule would require a bank to ask the question of a small business person, what's your race? What's your ethnicity? What's your sexual preference? Are you gay? Are you a woman? Now that's you can bubble wrap this all you want, but that's what your rule does. Now the customer, particularly in a small town, is going to go, whoa, what's my sexual preference have to do with a loan? And the customer can say, I don't want to answer. But then the bank you're requiring the bank to tell you that they wouldn't answer. And all of this data is going to go to your agency. And we don't have the slightest idea how you're going to use it, except you say you're going to publish it.
Well, we will not get any names at all.
But you're going to have data sets so that if it's possible, you can't tell me it's not possible to have this information known. Why do you want all this information?
I don't.
Why do you want to know what a small businesswoman's sexual preference is?
Okay, that's a mischaracterization.
No, it's not.
Of it. Yeah, it is. We
No,
have
it's not.
congressional objectives.
No, it's not.
We had to implement it. People can self-identify. There is no personal
Why do you
information
want to know what a small businesswoman, let's say in a town of 20,000 people going to her local bank to borrow money, why do you want to know what her sexual preference is? What business is that of yours?
Let's begin with the data breach. Unlike many cybersecurity incidents that come from external hackers, this one was caused by an insider threat, a CFPB employee who, without authorization, emailed sensitive consumer data to a personal account. Although the breach reportedly did not include social security numbers or birth dates, it did involve consumer names and institutional data. Perhaps even more troubling, the CFPB waited 2 months before notifying those affected. This raises fundamental questions. How can an agency that regulates data security and privacy fail to protect its data? And if such a lapse occurs, how can the public trust that the agency will act swiftly and transparently? The second issue is even more controversial. Under the CFPB's implementation of Section 1071 of the Dodd-Frank Act, the agency now requires banks to ask small business loan applicants to self-identify their race, ethnicity, gender, and possibly other sensitive characteristics. The stated purpose is to gather data that helps detect and prevent discrimination in lending, a goal that reflects our country's commitment to fairness and equality in economic opportunity. But critics argue that the rule is invasive, particularly for small business owners in tight-knit communities. They ask, why should someone's race or sexual orientation be relevant to a loan application? What does a woman's private life have to do with her creditworthiness? While the CFPB insists this information is voluntary and that no individual names will be shared, the regulation still requires banks to ask these questions and to report when a customer refuses to answer. That alone raises privacy concerns. And, in light of the recent breach, confidence in how the agency will handle and safeguard this data is understandably shaken. Ultimately, this moment raises broader questions. How do we balance the need for civil rights enforcement, with the need for personal privacy. How can a government agency demand transparency from banks and consumers when its own security and communication practices are in question? And how do we ensure that regulatory power is exercised with humility, accountability, and trust? The CFPB has an important mission. But with that mission comes great responsibility. Today, both its leadership and its policies are under the microscope, and it is up to all of us to ask hard questions, demand honest answers, and work towards solutions that protect consumers without sacrificing their dignity or their rights.
We sought to implement what the congressional requirements are.
What business is that of yours? What a small businesswoman does in her bedroom? Who appointed you Pope?
Again, people are able to self-identify if they wish.
You're
to
making
refuse,
them.
We are not making them.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
And if they don't answer, the bank has got to tell you. And we have no idea how you're going to use this information.
Well, I'm happy to
Director
meet with you
Chopra,
about it further.
Director Chopra.
That's not, I don't believe that's an
Director
accurate.
Chopra, please. Senator Kennedy, Director Chopra, answer one more time, and then I turn it to Senator Warner, who is on.
Am I over again?
Yeah, you're way over again, and I always let you, but I'm not going to let you go 3 minutes over with the same question 8 times, Senator.
Well, if you'd answer it,
so just like the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, there's other ways where there's requirements from Congress to collect data. In this situation, we took a lot of feedback to try and make it less intrusive, specifically based on the concern you're raising. There will not be individual consumer names sent. We can talk further about it, but we tried our best to implement the congressional directive faithfully and consider all of these issues.